think I'm all good now. I'll probably just close the door and I'm set. Sweet.
All right. Thanks so
Awesome.
much for doing this, Abby. I appreciate you being here.
Absolutely.
Welcome to the podcast. Can't wait to hear about all your adventures. Sounds like you had a couple of big ones over the summer. So,
Thanks.
and you're one of the Boulder badasses. So I can't wait to hear some stories.
I appreciate that. That's high praise.
Yeah, it is actually in Boulder. I know when I first moved here, I was like, I thought I was a decent athlete, and then I moved to Boulder and I went out for a bike ride, and some guy blew by me on a bicycle, and I look up and it's like probably a 65-year-old man, and I'm like, welcome to Boulder. Here I am. Everyone's an athlete.
That is like, I feel like everyone who's moved to Boulder has their version of that story.
Yeah, pretty much. Are you from Boulder, or where are you from?
I'm not. I am from I grew up in the Chicago area, in Vermont for a little bit, then back to the Chicago area, then out to LA, and then to Boulder via LA.
Okay. Was it your family that was doing all the moving around?
The family move was to Vermont and back to Chicago. The LA move was just like after college.
After college. Okay. I'm from pretty close to Chicago. I lived in Janesville, Wisconsin most of my life.
Oh,
so awesome. Like an hour and a half away from Chicago. So I was pretty close.
Is that do I know that name because it's near the near Alpine, the music venue?
Yes. If you were going to Alpine, you probably went right by Janesville.
That sounds really familiar.
I-90 goes like right through Janesville, and yeah, you probably went right by there a bunch of times.
I think that's why it's familiar. I was a huge Dave Matthews fan.
Nice.
In those days.
Okay. You were a Dave Matthews girl.
Yep, I was.
Awesome. I love it.
That's life.
Were you like one of those girls who like twirled the whole concert and just danced the whole time? Were you one of the twirling girls?
I wasn't a twirler. Okay. I wasn't so much, but I could definitely sense like which guitar was being picked up and which song was going to be played next.
Oh, no kidding. Okay. So you were definitely a fan.
That's awesome.
Cool. I like it. All right. If you don't mind indulging me, I'm going to ask you a series of rapid fire questions, and you can just answer right off the top of your head, whatever answer comes to your head first.
Awesome.
What was your first car?
It was a Volvo station wagon, shortly followed by a orange convertible Bug.
Woo, a couple of good ones.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. It was like the family station wagon, and then I got a car of my own.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. Oh, and the orange Bug was your own? You picked that one?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
Great. The license plate was Summer Breeze.
Oh, okay. That's cool. I like it.
It came with that license plate, but I didn't change it.
Perfect. What was your workout today?
Off day.
Oh, off day. Really?
Yep.
Rested all day.
Yep. Rested all day. Was going to maybe do a yoga video tonight, but I don't even know if I'll do that.
Okay. Perfect. I love it. Rest days are good.
Oh, the best.
Do you enjoy rest days? Is it something you look forward to, or do you kind of dread them?
I do. I really enjoy it. I really like it from a schedule perspective of just like having the full day very clear. I often run at night. And so it's always like this nice, enjoyable hour of just like, or however long, extra to just kind of bake or chill or
Nice. Cool.
I appreciate it.
What's the best thing that's happened to you this month?
We just got a van.
I saw the picture, and me and my fiance just got a van too. You guys got a Mercedes Sprinter. So did we. Yeah.
No way. Congrats.
Yeah. Hey, thanks. You too. Are you guys
when did you guys get yours?
It was probably about a month ago, and it's totally stripped out. It was it's used. It was a painter's van at one point, and we're gonna build it out, and it's gonna be like the adventure van. We have named it the Vanifester because we manifested it into our life. Do you have a name picked out for yours yet?
We don't, but we're like taking recommendations, taking nominations. So
cool.
Yeah, that was the only reason I left the house today on my rest day was to go. We went and picked it up today. So
today was the day. Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like fresh news as of a few hours ago. So
Okay. Is it brand new?
yeah,
Cool.
it
And
is.
are you going to build
Yep.
it out yourselves?
Yep. We are.
Cool.
So, yeah, we're just kind of like having so much fun getting into all the van nerdery and layouts. And as I'm sure you are too. Are
Yep.
you guys working on the build yourselves?
Well, I think we're going to pay a company to do most of the like electrical work, putting in the sink and all that stuff. So I think it's going to be kind of a combination of we'll do some of the work and then someone else will do some of the work. But yeah, and we're hoping to have it ready for
That's
summer. Yeah, we're so pumped. We're
oh,
tired of sleeping in the back of pickup trucks.
same. I feel like one of the things I like talk about that with the van that's so specific is like the ability to stand up and not being like all like when you're all tired after a run, like to be able to stand up and not be like all hunched. Like,
Yes.
so I totally feel that. Like, cause
Yes.
we have the top of our other vehicle and I love it, but you know, it's like going to be a really fun luxury to be able to stretch out a little more.
Oh,
And
totally. No,
yeah.
the pickup truck thing works great until it doesn't work anymore. And after you finish like the JMT, you want like a bed to lay down in and not crawl in the back
Sure,
of
we
the
keep
pickup truck.
yeah, like it's going to be so fun kind of from a crewing objective perspective. Like Cordis has a race he wants to do this spring and I'm like, that's gonna be so easy for me to crew. Like I'll pull up in the van and if it's, you know, accessible by road, I can like wait around somewhere warm and
Yeah,
heat
totally.
up the soup.
That's so cool. Well, congrats to you guys.
Yeah.
We'll have to keep tabs on it.
Thank you. You guys too. Congrats.
Absolutely. What is your dream adventure?
Ooh, my dream adventure is UTMB 2021.
Ooh, nice. Okay. Are you signed up?
That's my I think the registration opens soon, but like I also was registered last year, so I think it'll carry over.
Carries
But
over. Okay.
I'll double check on that.
Got it.
But
Cool.
that's the
Okay.
dream.
That's the goal for the year. What
Yeah.
is your guilty pleasure?
Mm, probably like stupid TV.
Okay.
Like I love like The Bachelorette and all that stuff. Or like I just discovered this new one, like Married at First Sight, and it's like
Yes.
I think it's it's such a nice way to unwind from a cold long run right now when it's all dark out. Just sit back and watch some trash. I'm not above it.
Yeah, no, I watched, I'm embarrassed to admit this. I watched Married at First Sight, like one of the seasons, I don't know if it was like the latest season. And it's like, once you get into it, it's like watching a train wreck. You just have to watch it until the very end just to see how things really shake out.
I'm totally with you. And I always like he calls it the anti-distraction because if like he has to work at night and I put it on, he's like, I don't want to watch it so much that it makes me focus on my work even more.
Awesome. So it works for both of you.
Yeah.
Oh, let's see. Favorite hobby besides endurance sports?
I would say playing piano.
Mm.
Yeah.
Have you played your whole life?
I have. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And I have not like played as much in the last few years, but recently got my like old keyboard out and set up and just love how much it draws me in. Like a half hour will go by and I'm like, don't want to come up for air. I
Nice.
just like want to keep. So
what kind of music do you play?
Gosh, I
Dave
mean,
Matthews.
not so much the Dave Matthews anymore, but I mean, I really play a little bit of everything. My background was classical.
Classical.
And then when I was living in LA, I was like writing some of my own music, and yeah, I'm pretty wide open genre wise though.
Very cool. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Favorite hallucination on the trail?
Yes. Oh my gosh. My okay, wait, are we starting to talk about Numapoyo JMT? Or are we talking about ever?
Ever. I can't wait to hear about JMT, but yeah, whatever you got. I just want to hear your favorite.
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, I think actually my first maybe my favorite is my first that I remember, which is one of Cordis's and my first adventures, our attempt at the Fifner Traverse in 2016. And on the side of, I can't remember which peak it was right now, but it was near Gourd Lake. And I saw a mountain high silhouette of a man with a cleaver.
Whoa.
It was taking up the whole shape of the mountain. It was this huge silhouette of a guy with a cleaver, like over his shoulder, like this.
It's like the Grim Reaper.
Yeah.
That's kind of scary.
Yeah. All of mine are like a little dark and scary. And I think that was just wild because it was my first experience with that. And it's like this weird blend of like feeling fully with it in the moment and feeling like it's so real.
Yeah.
And recalling later, like how there's no way it could be. But
wow.
maybe there is a way it could have been real.
Yeah. Did you question what you were doing? Like maybe death is coming for me type of thing?
Right? Kind of like a light at the end of the tunnel. The end is near.
Okay. Okay. And last question. What's the grossest thing you've ever seen or done on a trail?
Seen or done. Gosh, that's a good one. You know, I fortunately have a pretty steel stomach, so that's prevented a lot of unfortunate situations. But maybe some things from the other end have been more unfortunate.
Okay. Right on.
Leave it there.
We'll leave it at that. I like it. Very cool. Well, thanks. That got both of our brains warmed up. So, so how did this all start for you? Have you been running your whole life?
I have. I ran my first trail race like when I was in 5th grade, living in Vermont. My parents and I signed up for like a summer race series of some trail races around South Burlington, Vermont. And I won a pie and and it's really a fun age to like start a sport that's like, like at the time it felt slightly geared more towards older people. Like you don't see a lot of like children running. It starts more like maybe later in middle school. And so it was fun to show up at all these things and like win a pie. And like, I think it started this feeling of like feeling very fast. And so I kept setting goals for myself and, joined the cross country team and like really right from early on, really wanted to take it really seriously. And like, I remember in like 7th grade going to like the county meet and like running the contours of the course to make sure I was like hitting the curves right and like doing it on like a rainy day and things that feel like very similar to my brain now and how I want to approach things in a meticulous way and take it seriously and really care about it. And it's just like fun to remember that started really early on for me for fun.
No kidding. Were your parents runners? Is this genetic?
They were runners. They were like, they did races kind of up to like 10 miles in length. So like road running kind of stuff. And yeah, like for, as a hobby and for fun. But not like at a professional level or anything like that. But yeah, it was definitely like a fun thing. I have memories in middle school, like my mom and I going for runs. And then like the day when she was like, okay, yeah, like you can run by yourself. And, I started keeping my little notebook of writing, 3 miles, rain, felt good.
No kidding.
Yeah. So it's fun to look back on that and feel like it's been a pretty common theme throughout my life.
Yeah. Sounds like it.
Yeah.
Where did it go from there? Cross country, track, the whole thing?
Yeah. So from there, cross country and track in middle school, then moved back to the Chicago area for high school. And those memories from my high school team were just like some of my favorite. And those were really formative years for me as a runner. And so many of my friends in high school were runners. And that was just like something I poured so much care and energy into. and then continued running through college at Wheaton College, which is a D3 school. Ran cross country, and then in track my event was mainly like the 800, and just loved it. And I think like towards like the end of college, I feel like I was getting a little bit burned out on the rhythm of competition. And it's funny though, because I remember distinctly, like after college was over, you like anyone I think who's running college and maybe is still a runner has this moment where you wake up like whatever, May 15th, you're done with college, your season's behind you, and you still want to go for a run, and you want to go for a run the next day. And you realize you don't have a coach who's assigning you things anymore, but you still want to keep after it. And so that was kind of cool to realize. And I think I kind of reclaimed my running. I feel like I didn't really have I was like a pretty, I feel like mediocre college runner. I didn't have like, a crazy, like I wasn't like running nationals or anything like that. But like after school, I think I ran a marathon right away that following fall, and started to run a few more after that. So I was running like Chicago and Boston, and just kind of finding my like young adult rhythms of like, okay, I have a job and I'm going to run and train, and like, this is still something I really care about. So kind of really, so then I moved to LA, and running was very much like this piece in the background. Like I was still doing it every day. I was often running like in Griffith Park, or I was like running by the Silver Lake Reservoir. I lived like in Los Feliz, Silver Lake area in LA. And yeah, I kept with it. I was running marathons, but it was by no means like, I don't think I can probably count on one hand the number of times I ran like with someone while I lived in LA for several years. So like, it was just this kind of like personal hobby. It wasn't like a guiding force in my life. I wasn't like involved in like trail communities or anything like that there. Of course, now I know there's like a huge booming community of that in LA, but at the time, like my circles were a lot more focused on my work like as a designer and creative fields. So that was like where a lot of my social circles were. But I had started to, I'm trying to think of like the earliest of early intros, but I had started to like hear about ultra running. And this was also at a time where I was like starting to go to the Sierra more as a climber. I was doing a lot of climbing at the time.
Okay.
So I had like two separate things of like my climbing, where I would go up to the Sierra and climb in like, Yosemite or Bishop or, Joshua Tree or whatever, like so many great places in California. And then I would like come home on Sunday and catch up on my run training. And so I wasn't really like putting two and two together that I could go climb this thing and then run these cool trails in this area. And I think that some of those early mountain adventures were how I was starting to hear murmurs of ultra running. I think, maybe a common portal for a lot of, folks who start ultra running is like, say, doing a peak, and then after wondering like, I wonder what the fastest time anyone's done that in, and Googling, you hear about FKTs and like, FKT, what's this all about? And really an early one for me was hearing about the John Muir Trail. So I think at the time too, it was a lot of stories of, I feel like that was not long after like Hal Kerner and Mike Wolf had done it, and Jen Shelton had a number of attempts on it. It was like in the like around like 2014, 2015 kind of. And so I was like listening to podcasts and finding videos and just starting to kind of gobble up content of like, oh my gosh, there's a sport, ultra running, and they all like have these crazy stories. And this was all kind of colliding at a time where I was kind of looking for that niche community to be a part of. And so I remember running at Silver Lake Reservoir, and I'd put on a podcast that's like, way too cool preview. And I'm like, I don't even know what way too cool is. I don't know who any of these people are, but it's so cool listening and hearing about who's going to do what and their stories and their experiences. And I was just kind of very quickly like, I want in on this. This is really special.
Yeah.
And, you know, was like kind of looking for a possible exit move from LA to move to a slightly smaller community where maybe my life could be more focused on mountains and adventures and ultra running now. And so I distinctly remember at the time, this goal had started to formulate. Well, I want to go for a fastest known time on the John Muir Trail. And I need to move somewhere where I can train for it. So this is back in 2016. I looked at like an apartment in Bishop. I looked at, you know, moving up to the Pacific Northwest and Bay Area, and quickly settled on not settled on, but like quickly decided on Boulder. And yeah, moved to Boulder in spring of 2016 and started going to every group run in town. I was like the group run junkie. You're going to a lot of group runs in 2016. You probably knew me because I would be like the girl who was like, hi, I'm Abby, want to be friends? And like, I'll stick around for a beer. I'm down to run with anyone. At any time. I just want to dig into this. And so really that was kind of the transition to Boulder. And then of course from there, things take off.
For sure.
You know, even further. But like, I think it's just cool to bring up, especially in light of like what this year held for me, that, you know, that like the JMT was a very early part of why I got into the sport. And so for that reason, I always like hearing too about, you know, what some people's like big goals were early in the sport. Like Leadville was another early one for me of, you know, hearing these legends about wanting to be a part of. And so I think it's always cool hearing about what draws someone to the sport and then how that same goal continues to guide them throughout their journey in the sport.
Yeah, totally. So when you were running marathons, were you good? Like, was it something you took seriously?
Like qualified for Boston and stuff like that.
Okay.
I think probably right now I could go like PR in my marathon compared to what I was running then, just in terms of progression. So I don't feel like I look back and really like resonate with my times or anything like that. But I definitely was like putting a lot of care into it, but I think there's like I've definitely taken it like a whole new level of seriously, I'd say, like in the last 3 or 4 years. That, you know, at the time, I don't think I was even coming close to like digging as deep as I have been now, or pouring like attention and focus into it. But I think like for me, the guiding piece really was like that care was still there the whole time, like that desire to hold myself to a high standard, to keep going, to keep trying new things, keep pushing myself. That is like a very continual theme for me. So I definitely look back and see that, even though I don't feel like a ton of attachment to those marathon times.
Totally. Yeah. Where did that drive come from? Is that something you've always had?
That's a good question. I think I definitely have always been inspired, like by the idea of, it's kind of twofold. One is like this idea of like being part of like a niche community. Like I joke, but even like something like Dave Matthews Band early on in life, of the feeling of going somewhere and feeling like all these people are really excited about the same thing and they want to nerd out on it and they know it really well and they're really excited for it. Like I look at early things like that I was a part of, where it's like, I was going to be into it. I was going to be like all in and really know it well. So I think like part of it comes from that, but I think part of it also comes from a place of wanting to try and be like at the edge of something, like at the tip of the spear if I could be. And I, as a kid, was really fixated on big athletic goals. Like when I was in elementary school, I was like wanted to like be an Olympic sprinter, and I had like dreams of, my big thing I was into was like, I I wanted to join the NBA and the WNBA because I believed that women could be like at the front of basketball too. And like, I think it was partially maybe started from this kind of beat the boys mentality of like, I want to win the gym class mile. I want to like, you know, prove that like girls can do all the things that boys can.
Yeah.
And I think it was just purely being competitive. And I have like definitely grown to embrace that competitive side of me more. I feel like as a female, like growing up, it's not always like, you know, like taught to be a positive quality, but I've really grown to see it as a positive quality.
Sure.
And so I like to encourage people to like embrace that if it's part of them, you know, to not like feel the need to downplay or pretend like something doesn't matter to you when deep down inside it does. Because I think that's a common story with a lot of female athletes and just a lot of athletes in general. So yeah, I think that competitive piece is probably what makes me care.
Yeah. So that's kind of, is that your why?
That's maybe not my why okay. So that's part of my why, maybe just like in terms of background and who I wanted to be as a kid and things like that. But I like to think of my why more now as like, okay, so maybe part of what I talked about with like, you know, owning what you care about, not downplaying. Like if you have a goal, go all in, like be vocal about it. And if you fail, like don't be afraid to like totally botch it and learn from that and like let it keep propelling you.
Yeah.
And I think my why is somewhere in there of like not fearing failure, enjoying the journey, like really being here for like the long-term process, not just like a quick success or you know, highlight reel kind of thing.
Totally. Yeah. Are you competitive in other aspects of your life as well?
I don't know. I feel like it's pretty like specific to running.
Okay.
I don't think, you know, I'm not like, it's like if Cordis and I are playing game like dominoes, or it's like not like I'm like super competitive in every little thing, or I would say probably more like perfectionist. But so I guess there's like maybe there's a tie there between being competitive and being a perfectionist.
Yeah.
I get like that with my work. And so I think that's the tie-in, but I think the competition aspect is pretty purely athletic based.
For sure. Yeah. What's it like being married to another runner? Are you guys competitive with each other, or what does that look like?
We're not. I mean, like we definitely push each other.
Sure.
We hold each other to a high standard. And I really like that, but I wouldn't say that we're competitive like with each other. But it's a lot of fun, like being married to someone who, you know, like is really passionate about what I'm passionate about too. Like, I think one of the things that I love is how we can challenge each other on, you know, like we talk about Leadville, like after some of my Leadville races, like Cordis really, you know, held me to a high standard with how I thought about it and reflected on it. And he wasn't just going to tell me what I wanted to hear. And I think, you know, that's one thing I love about our relationship is that, you know, yeah, we're willing to like have those hard conversations and dig deeper because we both know how much we care about our goals. And, you know, he's the first person to help, you know, inspire me on a day when I don't want to get out the door or it's cold and dark and icy. And, you know, it's really nice to have someone there to remind me like why I love it all. And we just have a lot of fun too, like putting together big adventure days. That's like really awesome to do. And from like the beginning of just from first meeting each other, that was like always like what we got up to. And so it's like been really cool to learn more about those outer boundaries of what I'm capable of through some of those adventures together. And I think that's even what pulled me towards some of the more unsupported adventures, was seeing how much Cordis and I could do unsupported together. And these big days we'd put together made me realize how much confidence I had, even just by myself, even if he wasn't there. And so that was a cool thing to learn. Yeah.
Let's talk about Leadville. We talked briefly before we started recording that I just remember seeing pictures of a Sufferfest out there, and you've done it a couple times though, haven't you?
Yeah, I have. I did it in 2017 and 2018.
Okay. Were they both Sufferfests?
Yep.
What's up with Leadville?
I don't know. I've gone into Leadville both times with like very big hopes and dreams, and like I've just totally fallen apart both times. I mean, I've finished both years, and that's like a big accomplishment still, and one that I do not take lightly. But I think it's a race that I think can really catch people off guard, because you look at the numbers and you train at altitude if you can, and you like put in the work, and it seems like your day should add up to this. And I don't know, I guess maybe that's just a hard thing to do in ultra running in general. And I've learned a lot about myself on those hard days, and pushed through some races that I definitely did not want to finish. My first year like went out hard, both years like went out with the intent of like being on the podium or trying to win, and just back half coming into and leaving Winfield, really Hope Pass outbound and beyond had like just would totally fall apart. And so I had some like lung issues and yada yada, but I think that was a nice icebreaker into the sport because I definitely learned early on that my path wasn't going to be what I thought it was. I thought like, oh man, I want to be all competitive and move to Boulder and like launch onto the scene and like crush it at like my first 100. And like, I wanted that to be my story so much, and it wasn't. And it was like a very painful lesson to learn though. It's like, you've really got to swallow your pride to be willing to march it in. And that was, I think, especially going through that whole second time. I mean, I'm pretty sure this is like last I checked, it was like on Strava or whatever, was like this is my second Leadville. My, oh my gosh, why am I blanking on? Oh, my power line climb inbound was like the second slowest ever recorded on Strava.
What?
Like crazy, like totally falling apart. And yeah, just had every reason to want to quit, like fighting cutoffs more like year one than year two. And it was just like emotionally rough to swallow that. Like, I was like, man, I like feel like I'm kind of a good runner. Like this is like really hard for me. And I don't know why it's being so hard for me. And even that kind of logic right there, I think is a lot of what I had to work through, which is this X should be X, or, this is how I wanted it to go. And kind of learning very, maybe the hard way, how just because you want something hard enough isn't quite enough always. And there's a lot, it's a complex sport, and there's a lot to it beyond pure willpower. And yeah, that was a good lesson to learn.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a huge lesson. I've learned that lesson myself a few times.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you did anything specifically wrong? Like, was your training up to speed, or was it nutrition, or anything you can put your finger on?
Not totally. I think it's a combination of probably like, I don't know, like knowing how to work through those lows. Like I just didn't have enough experience troubleshooting yet.
Yep.
It's kind of a combination of that and maybe some like rookie mistakes as far as pacing goes. But I feel like early on in ultras, there's like those realizations of like, oh wait, you can dig that deep, like, what? And
Yeah.
like I feel like I'm still learning those.
Mm,
Where it's like lowering, I call it like lowering my like bottom line kind of every time, where it's like, whoa, I didn't think I could go there,
mm,
and whoa, I could. Like it used to be that like, oh, that like power line inbound was, and it's like, you know, especially like what I did this fall, summer, it was like, oh man, like try doing that for like a whole like 30-hour stretch or whatever. Like I keep trying to find new stuff for PRs.
totally.
So, it's a cool feeling though. I mean, I have drawn a lot of confidence and pride from those new lows, but
That's how we learn, right?
yeah.
It really is. Um, it's, I don't want to sound, I don't want this to sound wrong, but like, it's almost comforting to hear, you know, like an elite athlete like yourself that goes out and struggles and doesn't always have great days. And, you know, I'm a mid-pack runner, and it's almost comforting to hear that. It's like, okay, I guess I'm not the only one. Like, other people can blow up out there too. Like, it happens to everybody.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
I was really, I'm glad to hear you say that, because I was feeling in those lows like, man, like I don't feel like I hear about this enough. Like I don't feel like I hear about elite runners that are having bad days.
Mhm.
And I know it's happening. I just don't feel like I hear about it too much. Or if it was, then maybe it was like, you know, I don't know, like, I don't know. I guess I have like a little bit of not DNFing pride. Like I really want to like, you know, march it in. And I
Mhm.
think that's like an unpopular choice sometimes, especially with folks trying to like, you know, like have a career out of it. And I totally get that.
Yeah.
But it's like, I feel like I was missing that story a little bit, where I was like, I want to hear about more people who have like really marched it out.
Yeah.
And so it's just, I maybe it's just because it's kind of hard to talk about. It's like a vulnerable thing to be
It really
like,
is. Yeah. Yeah, it really is. Especially when you have great expectations that you put on yourself. Like, I want a podium finish. And then, you know, you're barely squeaking it in at 28 hours. But it's admirable though, because as a mid-pack runner, you know, watching other elite runners that, you know, they fall behind and then they just drop out. You
yeah,
know, they might have another race on the calendar, and I know that there's reasons behind it, but you know, we wouldn't be talking about your Leadville experience had you dropped out, you know?
right.
So like from our point of view, it's pretty cool to see someone just like, okay, this is going to suck, but we're just going to march it in. We're just going to walk this thing until I get to the finish line.
I am glad to hear you say that. It might maybe reminds me of your story of getting passed on the bike by the older guy.
Yes.
It's like I feel like a very classic Leadville story, at least for me, of like just, you know, getting passed by everyone and anyone. So
So you
so
must have really been crawling up power line inbound. Holy
oh
cow.
yeah, yeah. Well,
Wow. That's
it's
impressive.
if you know, like if you're in a race it's not going well, it's like you feel the transition where all these people start to pass you. It was like the amount of people that were actively passing me that late in the race was like really surprising to me. I was like, man, how is everyone doing this right now? This is
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Was Leadville your first 100?
Yep.
Okay. So you were just jumping right into the fire. I mean, it's not necessarily an easy race.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, the next year I really thought like, okay, well, surely it can't go that poorly twice in a row. And it was a little better the next year. I think I beat my time by like an hour or so, um, but it's a hard one to get right. Like I went into it, I had like won Silver Rush, you know, the month before, which I think
Wow.
is a tricky double to do. But, you know, I went in thinking like all signs were pointing to a better race.
Mhm.
So maybe one day I'll get it right.
Yeah, for sure. Is it still on your list?
A little bit, but I think it's further down now. I
For
think
sure.
it held a really high spot in my heart for a couple of years there, and it still definitely does. But I feel pretty excited about some new things for now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'll definitely get back there someday, though.
Totally. Yeah. That's a good way to look at it. I mean, I don't want to just focus on like the hard times of your ultra running career either. Like, I want to hear about some of the good times too. Have you ever had any, I'm sure you have, like moments in a race where everything is clicking? Like, what's some of the standout moments in your head where like, everything's clicking and you're just thinking, man, I was born for this. This is my day right here.
I like that kind of moment too. I've definitely felt that probably like both of the times where I've run like North Face 50. For me, that finish across the Golden Gate Bridge is just like so epic. And there's people everywhere. You're like swarming through crowds on the bridge. And I just always have had some strong finishes there that like get me amped. I think like anytime I'm able to like have a really fast finish in a race, I'm like really psyched, even though that probably means I had more left that I should have spread elsewhere. It's a fun way to finish.
Yeah.
So that, and then probably like another highlight definitely is CCC. Like in terms of like the energy and the experience and the sights and people and all of that. That's like, that was a high, really start to finish for me. Just like one of those days where the whole day you're just like, man, this is so fun. And I think part of that comes from like the amount of people out there that are just like so psyched, and like the energy is just really keeps you going. So
yeah.
I love like anytime I can feel really engaged with the community like that, and like, see people, out on the course, or just those cool moments of seeing our sport, on its stage.
Yeah, that's a different level over there too. It's a little bit bigger than it is here in the United States. Yeah.
And I think also though, probably the other highlight would be on the Numapoyo, or or the JMT. Those are some of my greatest life memories like ever. So it's a different kind of feeling than like, crushing like fast splits across the Golden Gate Bridge. But it all feels very connected to me still.
Yeah, totally.
Very different stuff.
So before we get into the JMT, do you feel like 50 miles is your distance? Have you nailed the 100-mile distance yet, or where do you sit there?
I have not nailed the 100-mile distance yet. And so it's kind of funny to feel like I did a, 220 whatever mile thing this summer that I'm stoked on how it went. And then I've had like some really great, like 50-mile, 100K kind of things. But yeah, I haven't quite yet nailed that 100-mile. So it's a gap I'm excited to fill. But I do really love that. Like for racing, I really love that 50-mile distance or like 100K. That's like, I think it's really fun because it can kind of fit in this, I mean, depending on the course, of course, but kind of fits in this like sun up to sundown, like fits in a day nicely. You can wake up in a bed and go to sleep in a bed. You can run really hard, the whole, really be trying to fire on all cylinders, and spread the effort in a way that feels like really engaging the whole time. So I've had a lot of fun at that distance for sure. And I'll definitely keep sticking with that a lot, but like I'm excited, maybe one day to say like give like Western States or something like that a go.
Yeah.
A fast 100 like that. And
do you like look at the 100-mile distance a little different now after the summer you had, after you went out and did a crazy 220-mile run? Does it seem a little different in your head now?
I think so. I think there's just like maybe a new kind of confidence that I learned this summer of just that feeling of being able to go and go, and to be able to go long after you felt like you could. And, talk about those like relatable lows, so to speak, of like, oh, wow, it's cool to hear someone else say how hard this was too. But, like those lows for me for JMT were, in day one. I mean, it was hard the first day. And I think anytime you reach that low and you keep going, it's like from there on out is like that much character building that is hugely formative. And so I think that like, yeah, I'm really excited to take that confidence to like 100 one day. And, yeah, for sure.
That's cool. That's so cool. I can't wait till it happens. You're going to nail it for sure. I'll be looking forward to it. So what's your history with the JMT? And I've heard you calling it, what do you call it?
The Numapoyo.
Okay. What does that mean?
So that is the Paiute name for the trail, which is centuries old indigenous trade route. So that is a name that I wanted to draw attention to throughout this process and throughout going for it. It translates to the People's Trail. And I wanted to really draw attention to a lot of indigenous history in that area that's been really overlooked by, areas that we know for, being protected by like the Sierra Club and John Muir and a lot of those, really heroes to American conservationism. But I think there's a lot more history there than is ever told. And I just kind of wanted to really put that name in people's heads and maybe tell a little bit more of that story. And that was something that grew important to me in my research of the trail. And I liked learning a lot about that history in my preparation and thinking about it while I was out there.
Yeah. The Numapoyo.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
What is,
I'm fine either way.
Oh yeah. Yeah. What is the history of that trail? How much do you know? You said it was a trade route for indigenous people?
Yeah. So there's like a number of tribes that all converge in those ranges. And so, from what I know, it was like a trade route running north-south that then was kind of repurposed later, I think, by, people that were coming to the area and starting to recreate and starting to realize, hey, let's not strip these lands for, their minerals and mining and, destroy it. Let's hold off here. And, while that's obviously really important, there's, so much deeper history that was shoved aside, even through that conservation process. And so I think there's a big conversation to have about, what is like when we define wilderness, what is the story of wilderness? It's the place we might know as a protected area, but there's a whole history behind that and what that means, especially in America. And so, I think if for anyone that's like wanting to learn more about it, there's a group that I follow, Indigenous Women Hike, and they're based out of Sierra. And I mean, they have put out amazing information on a lot of things that I'm still trying to learn a lot more about, with Indigenous history and with how we manage land and involve Indigenous people in the process. So it's something I'm trying to learn a lot more about and like encourage others to as well. It's like something that can be hard to talk about sometimes if you don't feel like you have like the right information. And I know I feel like that sometimes still too. And so, I just like encourage folks to look into it, about like what lands, mean something to you, what trails mean a lot to you. Maybe there's a history there to dig into.
There's always more to learn. When did the JMT come across your radar? You said it was pretty early when you had just started, you were thinking about running ultras and you were getting outside and running more trails. Do you remember like the first time you heard of the JMT trail, or like the first time, what did that look like?
I think it was probably shortly after I had climbed Mount Whitney, and you know, you see like the signs for actually, so I like did Mount Whitney, and this was like very early on to a lot of my mountain adventures. And like at the gift shop at the end, I bought like a patch that was like, and I was like super out of it because I had this like big day, and it was like really big for me at the time. And I accidentally had bought a patch for the John Muir Trail. Like I thought it was a Mount Whitney patch, but it was like, I hiked the John Muir Trail. And I was like, I'm like reading it in the car, like later, I'm like, oh, I did not do 211 miles, even though, or two, whatever, felt like it. And so it was this hilarious thing. So I crossed it out on the patch, and, you know, I had this like formative experience on Whitney, but then remember hearing of this like greater trail. So yeah, like early on had this goal, like, you know, yes, I want to go set the fastest known time on this trail. And I moved to Boulder and had an attempt in 2016 supported, and it was just, the whole thing was a mess. I bailed like maybe 35 miles in, and like had, it just really quickly fell apart. I had poor Cordis, I had like assigned like an absolutely absurd amount of miles that he was going to have to cover in order to crew me. Like he was going to pace day one with me, hike out with some friends, hike in 20 miles to another place, hike out, pace me for this. Like it was just absurd. And I think was a classic case of kind of early ultra, like not knowing how to manage support, right?
Sure.
Like it's kind of a thing you've got to learn of, you know, when you roll into an aid station, how to communicate what your needs are. And like, you know, as amazing as your crew is, they're not like magicians that can just do anything and everything and read your mind and patch you up and get you moving faster. I mean, sometimes, but so that was another, I mean, that was really that first kind of like tail between my legs moment, so to speak, of like, oh, okay, I somehow thought that I could pull this off, and I can't even finish the first day. I can't even finish, you know, like I'm not even close, like back to the drawing board. I've got a lot of work to do. And that was on a summer of move to Boulder in like April, run my first 50K in June, 50 mile in July, JMT in September. Typical progression.
It's a little aggressive.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, but it always really stuck with me, and really felt kind of like something that would be my like post-grad project, so to speak, one day of like, oh, maybe one day I'll have figured out hundreds and I'll start to do multi-day things. And I was like, maybe in like a decade, like I'll be like strong enough to be able to do that. And fast forward to like this year, and Cordis and I had an objective in July called the Fifner Traverse, that we made it a big, I mean, we were 7 miles from the finish and had to pull the plug because of huge storms coming through the final peaks of our route. You know, we're just sitting on the divide watching as these huge black clouds roll in over the final handful of peaks that have been all above tree line. And so coming off of that bail, I was just feeling so high on what we had been able to accomplish just with these tiny packs on our back. And I was talking with my coach about like, I want to do something further and solo and unsupported. And he was like, well, you know, have you thought about going back for the JMT? And, you know, fast forward to somehow securing a permit, which was basically just me like refreshing the permit page like every 3 minutes for like 20 days. About 20 days. It was like probably from mid-July to, I got my permit basically like August 1st and I started September 1st. So I had a few weeks to cram before taper, and got out for a couple of fast pack missions, because I knew that the goal really between securing my permit and go time was just going to be all about gear systems. And, you know, I had a good summer of training under me. We'd spent a lot of time in the San Juans, and coming off of, you know, 67 miles or so of Fifner, I felt like, you know, in good shape for big mountain days. And so, yeah, it was really like a lot of just trying to figure out like what my sleep system was going to be, how my pack, like what pack I was going to use, how it was all going to fit. Because one of the unique requirements for the trail is that you have to carry a bear canister, a hard-sided bear canister. So I had a large, it was a carbon fiber bear canister, but it was still a couple pounds and very large and awkward, that I had to keep all of my food in to legally be on the trail.
You had to carry it?
Yeah.
The whole time?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. So my pack was 22 pounds at the start.
I mean, that's big though, right? A bear canister?
Yeah.
Like, and you put that in your pack somehow?
Yep.
Whoa.
Yep. So the pack that it would fit into is a 35-liter pack. So I use the UD Fast Pack 35, I believe it's called. And yeah, I was able to fit, I used the Barricade Weekender for anyone who's interested. And they actually offer bear canister rentals, which was pretty cool. So yeah, that was a unique piece of the gear puzzle for sure.
So you went into this really fit, but was your training specific to the JMT at all? It doesn't sound like you really had time.
No, I would say, so like July was, we spent a lot of time in the Sawatch, and we spent a lot of time like on the Hard Rock course. And I think in general, it was pretty good prep. Like I was like leading up to Fifner, it was just like a lot of long, slow days in the mountains. And just really, I think there's just so much emotionally that comes from that, of that feeling of spending sun up to sundown out there, carrying everything you need, troubleshooting as you go. And I think that was probably like, even that was the most relevant training for me, was just having that kind of long day confidence. So in that way, my summer was pretty full of that. Honestly, I don't know training wise how many things I would have changed if I had gone back with like a magic wand at the beginning of the summer and been like, I know I'm going to do this. Probably the main piece would have been training with a pack of that weight. I was bringing more like little vests on most of those days out. And it was a rude awakening on September 1st, my start date at the Quality Inn in Lone Pine, when I really, really picked up that full pack. And I had to go downstairs.
Oh, here we go. I signed up for this.
Yep. Wow. No turning back.
Wow.
Yeah.
So day one, a couple years prior, you didn't make it through day one. This is like a 4-day adventure.
Yeah.
So like, how was this day one different than your last day one?
I think the biggest difference right away was realizing how much the pack was going to influence my paces. So like even just the initial, you start, for those who aren't familiar, you start by climbing up Mount Whitney, which is I think like a, I don't know, 6,000 foot climb or something like that. So that's the first 10 miles of the route. And it's a unique way to start.
Warm up.
Yeah, that'll like, that's a morale check right out of the gates.
Right.
So yeah, having this heavy pack, it's like, I was really feeling different muscles firing already. Like it's a different, especially like when you're, coming off a big summer training, like, your paces so well, you're kind of in your groove of what a certain climb should feel like. And I remember feeling right away like, oh, wow, like my body's going to be moving very differently. And I've just got to be patient with that. And so, but there was like a huge confidence boost on that first day from the feeling of walking by where I had dropped last time. And that was a powerful thing. And yeah, I was pretty excited to be able to do that. And to really, a lot of what propelled me on was just the pure desire to like see what was ahead. Like last time I didn't get to see Ray Lakes, and I wanted to see Ray Lakes this time. And it's just some of the most beautiful terrain I've ever seen. And so it kept me going just around every corner, just kind of dying to see what was next.
So you weren't going so fast that you weren't able to enjoy the scenery. I know it's beautiful out there. You were still able to dig it, huh?
Yeah, definitely. That was a big source of energy for me.
Mm,
That and like fellow hikers out there. I was really pleasantly surprised by what a nice community that was going to be out there. You know, even in a weird COVID summer, everyone was really thoughtful with, you know, with masks and with just, you know, greetings and like, you know, everyone's so positive out there and so happy to be there, especially because of how competitive the permit process is.
mm.
Everyone's just like high on life. I'm like, can you believe we did it? We're here. And that's that kind of contagious feeling that, you know, maybe like I was saying with like races like UTMB or whatever, where
Mhm.
everyone's out and enjoying it. I think those things really remind me to be in the moment.
Yeah, yeah.
So
It sounds like you're really good at drawing from other people's energies. Why did you choose to go solo and unsupported?
I really wanted that. I wanted that pride. I think that I felt on Fifner. I was so sad when we had to pull the plug on that, and I felt I just really wanted to get that finish in, but also like I really wanted to push that edge of what I loved about that so much, which was that feeling of like these little packs and self-sufficiency and, you know, like sheltering under a rock when it storms and getting in the flow of managing your calories and your filtering and your layers and your pack and just feeling like it's this little world you're in. I was really hungry for more of that. And I think maybe like part of it too was just like this weird year we're in. I was like, this is a pretty simple operation for
Mhm.
Cordis to drop me off at the start and meet me in Yosemite. I don't need to like, you know, have a bunch of friends travel in or something like that. It's just, it's a simple procedure really.
Mhm. Mhm.
um, and so I kind of liked that style for this year of like, I'm just going to keep it basic and it's a little different for me and I'm going to learn a lot in the process.
Yeah, yeah. Are there separate FKTs from north to south and south to north?
There are,
Yeah.
yeah. So um, the um, the faster of the unsupported women's FKTs was going south to north, and that's like generally known as the faster way to do it.
Okay.
Being that like Yosemite Valley is lower than Whitney Portal,
Mhm.
so if you were going southbound, you'd have an extra. I think it's like 3,500 feet of climbing or so,
Okay.
which is just enough that you'd be like, oh, I'll go the other way.
Sure.
But yeah, so the women's unsupported record for northbound is around 4 days, 5 hours, and I missed it by about 6 hours, and I did it in 4 days, 11 hours.
Yeah.
But the southbound FKT is, I believe, like 6.5 days.
Oh, wow.
Uh, so definitely like the more competitive way from what I know is northbound. And I just kind of wanted to go right for that, like, um, you know, overall time in terms of either direction.
Yeah. Do you have any desire to go the opposite direction?
You know, actually, my original permit was for the other direction.
Okay.
And I was able to, like, later in the process, I still kept refreshing in case I could get a northbound. And I did. I got a northbound and gave up my southbound. Um, so actually, yeah, so that was what my original permit was. So that was what I was going to do
Oh,
originally.
okay.
Um, I was open to either, but
Sure.
then I knew I had the opportunity at the faster way. I was like, okay, I really want to throw my hat in the ring here.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there anything about this adventure that scared you before you went into it? I mean, the distance is probably scary enough, but you're out there, you're by yourself for days on end. Was there anything you were nervous about going in?
Absolutely. I had a whole laundry list of fears. And that was actually kind of one thing that my coach had encouraged me to do was, I think he phrased it like, you know, write out a list of everything that you feel like stands in the way of you and success on
Mm,
this.
okay.
And it was everything from I'm scared of hitting my head on a rock and having a medical emergency, to having an encounter with an animal, to, you know, hallucinations by myself, or getting, you know, like caught in a bad storm, and there were also a number of wildfires that were in the area
Right, right.
at the time. And like as a sidebar, I really threaded the needle with that. Like the day I finished was like a huge new fire had started. And so they shut down the whole trail and all of the forests in the area, I think like 2 days later, maybe
Whoa.
the next day or something. So I really made it just in time
No
before
kidding.
a whole long series of closures that I think were only recently lifted.
Wow.
So there was that too of, I, you know, in the days leading up was looking up, you know, I had like this whole special like little thing built to calculate like how far certain fires were from the trail. And some of it was like, okay, that one's currently like, you know, 15 miles from the trail. So that was like actively in my mind of like, okay, I might get a message on the inReach from Cordis that's like, hey, there's a fire ahead, you have to bail.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a fear too. So I had a lot of those.
Yeah.
And I was even, I mean, really just the general fear of nighttime is a big one. Like solo night travel, like strung back to back to back. That's scary. I mean, it's really fun, but it's like still kind of scary. I mean, it ended up being one of my favorite parts of the experience, but as I sit here, I'm like, whew, that's big.
Totally. Yeah. How did you face those fears? I mean, you know, you got this goal, this thing you want to do, but you also have this whole list of fears. How do those not creep into your head while you're out there and talk you into bailing from this thing? How do you just push forward like that?
You know, I'm trying to think of like really how to answer that. Cause I feel like, I don't know. I think once I got out there, my world just kind of shrank.
Okay.
And I feel a little bit like I had this almost false sense of security once I was out there. Like there's a lot of moments that I look back on and I'm like, that was a real and scary situation. Like speaking of fires, like I came across a wildfire like in the middle of the night and walked up to it, stomped it out and kept going.
Oh,
like,
wow.
and so like, it's things like that where like right now I'm like, I mean, I'm not like a super fearless person by nature. Like I'm always double checking our doors at night. And I would even say on the anxious side. And so for me to be in that state where I'm like, oh, wildfire, gotta go put it out. So I don't like miss any time here. Like, man, I burned 3 minutes putting out that wildfire. Like really, I think shows the different frame of mind I was in.
Yeah.
And I think so. I think maybe like the greater why to that, like, why was I willing to shrink my world to push through these hard things? And it's just because I really had like loved the idea of this trail for a long time. It's been like this larger than life hero of mine. The trail. It's been, I really felt that good things would be on the other side of this experience just by going out there and working through these things, and facing those fears was kind of part of the goal. Like I wanted to go for the FKT, but that was like one of the goals, but it wasn't like this FKT or bust mission. Like I went heavy on food. Like I wanted to be prepared. I even had the time off work to be out there for up to like 6 days or something like that. So I wanted to have every reason crossed off my list to turn off and bail. Like I wanted to have just this path cleared where I could just go experience this really special place I wanted to see for a while. And I think by framing it that way as like a life experience, it felt worth it to push through those fears. Yeah.
100%. Yeah, totally. It seems like you were just like channeling Superwoman out there or something. I mean, I love the picture you put in our heads of just like, you know, while you're out there running, you had to stop to put out a wildfire real quick and then you just keep on going. I mean, how cool is that? That's
I do kind of feel like, now that you say it that way, I feel a little bit like Numapoyo me is like this alter ego that I
Yeah.
like love. And
Yeah.
I think that's maybe sometimes too why, like, I really, this whole fall and still, like, I really miss it. And I've definitely had the blues post that experience in terms of just, it just was so special to me. I think
Mm,
about it every day. I think
wow.
about every night when I fall asleep. I think about being out there. I think of specific places on the trail. And I think part of it comes from like that larger than life version of me, maybe, that was
Mhm.
out there.
Mhm.
And yeah, so I like that
Wow.
visual.
Do you ever think like, I always get these crazy ideas in my head, like maybe in a past life, like I had some connection to that trail, or, I've always felt this connection to just the mountains in general. And, I'm from Wisconsin, just
Mhm.
randomly moved out to Boulder. I felt a real draw to the mountains. Do you
Yep.
feel like there might be just some crazy, I don't know if you believe in past lives, but just some crazy connection. Do you ever think about that?
I don't know if I've ever put words to it like that, but I totally feel that emotionally with
Yeah.
it as a
Yeah.
place. Like the Sierra, from, I mean, really the West has held so much for me since I was a kid, doing trips out to Colorado with my family. But the Sierra has really, like, ever since I first like laid eyes on that range and that area, it's like, I mean, it's just haunted me, and it's like
Mm,
done amazing things for my life trying to pursue that feeling.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I totally, I mean, that I'm not above believing that.
Yeah.
I'd love to believe that.
It's making you stronger one way or
Yeah,
another.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Day two. What was it like? Walk me through day two.
Day two was rough. It was, I really went through a lot of extreme heat.
Mm.
The heat really reflects off of those white granite walls. And so kind of climbing up like Pincho Pass and then Mather Pass. Like I was getting temps up into the like just shy of 100 in
Mm.
places. So,
Mhm.
and I'm okay with heat. Like I can manage that pretty well. But it's definitely like when you start to notice a lot of things of like where your pack is rubbing, and you're kind of acquainted with like, oh, these are going to be the set of issues that we're working with here. Like the bear canister is going to be rubbing my lower back, and this food isn't going to taste quite as good as I thought it would. And like you get, you kind of settle into like the little reality. Um, but really by the end of day two, going up Mather Pass was, I would say, when like a switch turned, and there was just a shift in perspective that went from like feeling very, um, maybe a little whiny in my head and kind of like, oh, this is just harder than I felt, the typical slew of things.
Mhm.
Um, Going up Mather was when something changed where I kind of didn't look back the rest of the time and really just settled into what the experience was and really enjoyed every step of it. I timed it with, no, I didn't time it intentionally because my permit just existed at September 1st, but it was lined up with a full moon. So my
Wow.
nights were just like these stunning arrays of, bright blue lakes reflecting in the moonlight,
Mm.
and the granite walls like lit up with moonlight. And that made the nighttime just wild because I was like, it didn't, my experiencing of the landscape didn't pause at night. Like I was
Mhm.
instead arriving at these lakes and being like, oh my gosh, there's no one here right now. And it's reflecting in the moon. And this is just crazy. And I was just like, yelling out loud and like psyched. And like, yeah. So I think realizing that night was like going to shift from being this like scary thing to like this like really awesome thing, because then also there were like, it was really quiet out at night. And as much as I do like, like the energy of seeing people, like it was also really cool to just be like really in the zone at night. And yeah, that was like, I think the first feeling of those fears being turned on their heads of like, oh, I thought this was going to be the worst part. And this is actually pretty amazing. And
Nice.
it'd be a lot cooler at night as well. So I could just, really cruise. And yeah, that was like the big shift that occurred on day 2.
That's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
You took a couple sleeping breaks. Were they at nighttime or in the daytime, or when were you sleeping?
So day 1, there was a lot of smoke. So, okay. So I guess like to overview, I slept, I think 6 hours and 20 minutes over the course of the 4 days, 11 hours that I was out there. Day 1, the smoke from the nearby fires, like in that whole Whitney zone, Crabtree Meadows area, like going up Forester Pass, that was so, the air quality was so poor. I felt like I needed some recovery sooner. So I actually opted on day 1, even though I started at like 7 a.m. or something like that, 8 a.m. I started at 8 a.m. I think I took my first nap at like 9 p.m. that night, which isn't that long into what a thing it is. I was not, I had not covered that much ground yet, but I felt like my body needed a little bit more recovery earlier, just after what it had been through with the smoke. I don't know if there's actually anything to that, but it was just what I felt strongly about. And then I got up and continued through the night. So I actually carried that rhythm throughout, which was not my plan at all. But I threw that sleep plan out the window and was like, I like this feeling of sun goes down, moon's not quite up yet, so it's darker, sleep early in the night, like from, say 8 or 9 to 10 or 11 p.m., and then push through the whole night. For whatever reason, that really worked for me. And I kept that pattern until the 4th night, where I was close enough to the record that I opted to skip sleep entirely and did, I think, around 24 minutes of various, very brief scattered naps that night. Like they would be down to like that last night, they would just get so quick, where I was just throwing my pad like in the middle of the trail, just like 4 minutes, like setting 3 alarms for like 4 minutes from now, sleep, wake up, keep going. Just use them as like bartering tools with my brain. Yeah. That was kind of how the sleep strategy went down. And yeah, like it was all in all, like I'm happy with how that sleep management piece went. And I feel like I didn't think that would have been a strength for me, but I feel like, I think I could do like more sleep deprivation stuff in the future. Like I'm down for that.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's like a big missing piece of the puzzle for so many people who are going out on these multi-day adventures, because it's tough to train for sleep deprivation. So you always just kind of wonder how don't know how it's going to go. I've never been awake that long. But yeah. It sounds like you did it.
Yeah.
Day three, like, is the FKT still in your sights at this point?
Definitely. Yeah. I think that I actually, I think gained a lot of time closer to the FKT on day 3.
Okay.
So where I think I had lost the most ground was day 1 and day 2. Between the smoke, I think day 1, and between the like heat on day 2, like both of those, for whatever reasons, like I was behind. Okay. But day 3, I was really starting to like, hack away at it. And so I think I was in a better, I was just moving better. So it was definitely in sight. And I also had, I think, tightened up my sleep night 3 as well to like 145 or something like that. So, it's always like a guessing game with like, if I sleep more, was I going to go faster? Or do I sleep less and just plug away? And you're just kind of playing with those dials the whole time, but then really trying to keep that, calculating separate from what you want or feel. Like it's interesting to do that, with your own brain by yourself out there.
Yeah. I can only imagine how much confidence you gain just going through all that and just kind of getting it dialed and figuring out what your body is capable of. And I guess you only do that when you go out and do these multi-day things, but that's pretty cool. So are you having any stomach problems, hallucinations, anything by the 3rd day? Are you doing okay?
no stomach issues, the whole time, which was cool.
Nice.
Hallucinations were starting though, for sure. It was really interesting to start. There's a couple access points in the trail where you kind of come near society a little bit, where there's like, what's it called? Like where through hikers might like refill, like little ranches kind of where you could go and get like a Coke and chips and a bunk bed for the night or whatever.
Okay.
And so it was really weird to approach like some of the trails that would turn off to places like that, because you're like, feeling like you're near society. And so I remember my brain starting to like look for cars and buildings, because I knew that there were, these places nearby. And, just as like I don't know, I remember like looking like, I wonder if I can see a road or a car, because I haven't seen cars in days or whatever. And I think that's where like my brain was starting to play a little bit of, thinking I'm near society, but I'm not, and starting to see a little bit of that. And yeah, that was like definitely becoming more vivid on day 3. Yeah, and I had like some long stretches without water through there as well. So just like just trying to limit the number of variables you're managing at once. It's like, if I'm hallucinating, I want to at least be like eating well, or if I'm, dehydrated, I want to make sure that I'm like getting enough caffeine and staying awake. So just trying to juggle all those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it takes experience to juggle all that. That's good on you.
Sure. Like I already feel I'm thinking all the time about all the things I could have done to cut off time. And I mean, that's just always how these things go.
Yeah, for sure. Night 3, how did that go?
Night 3 was good. It was yeah, that was, I always have to think in my head. I'm like, this night 1 was okay. Yeah, night 3 was interesting because I knew that in the morning I would be starting to get near like Devil's Post Pile, which is like where Cordis was staying.
Okay.
And even though I wasn't going to see Cordis, like he didn't come out, and even though like he could have technically come and like said hi to me or whatever and not given me support, I knew emotionally like that was not going to be what I needed. I needed to like have that feeling of walking past and continuing to be self-sufficient. And I've told some people that, and it's like, what? That's crazy. Like, why wouldn't you want to see? And I was like, of course I want to see Cordis, but like, I needed to see him kind of in the right way, which to me was like in Yosemite Valley at the end. And that was when I could let down my guard and shut everything up, and be done. But I didn't want to risk feeling that way during it. And so like ending night 3 that way of like, oh my gosh, I'm getting kind of near like where he's staying, and like you're near Mammoth, and you're like, day 4, I crossed into Yosemite, but it's like, or actually maybe it was end of day 3. But you start to get near society, and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm starting to be like near the end. But and I actually was just writing about this. I'm still working on my trip report.
Cool.
So this is good for my memory. But I think on like the morning after, morning after night 3 or whatever, I was like, I'm getting so close. And I looked on the map. I was like, I think it was like 110 miles to go or something. Like, oh, or I don't know if it was 110. It might have been like 80 or something, but it was whatever it was a very significant amount of distance left. But in my brain, I was like, wow, like starting to wrap it up here.
Hallucinations at nighttime, or are they mostly in the daytime? Or like I almost always hallucinate more at night.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that the tunnel vision kind of helped a little bit with limiting the hallucinations at night for me. And I think I think that like for me, the hallucinations felt most active when I was trying to like make sense of something, like when I was seeing other people on the trail and trying to like, place like, oh, I don't know, what is it that I'm looking at over there? Or like, what's that outline? And seeing shapes all around you. Like for me, that was more visually stimulating, maybe during the day. But yeah, I think like by night 4 was when it was steady hallucinations the rest of the way. And really even until the final, probably 2 miles to go. I mean, like
Oh, wow.
the final bits of the trail, I was yelling out loud at hallucinations because they were so vivid and scary and real. I was like, stop. And I probably looked just like psycho. But really, those stuck with me right until the bitter end.
Oof,
So
wow.
yeah, I would just say if I were to draw a graph, it would be this.
Okay.
The exponential curve.
Well, less and less sleep. That's to be expected, I guess.
Exactly.
All right. Day and night 4. What was walk me through that. How'd it go?
Well, night 4 was my UFO encounter.
Yes, which I can't wait to hear about.
Yeah. So should I just get right into it?
Well, before we get into it, I was scrolling through your Instagram earlier today before we jumped on here. And so I think it was the post before you started JMT. You mentioned something like, what else could go wrong this year? And
Yes.
you said alien abduction, question mark.
Yes.
So did you like manifest this into your life, or like, have you ever had any experiences like this before?
I have not. And it's actually so funny because that was the thing like my coach and I were joking about before. It was like anytime things were popping up, I was like, well, the fires are really bad. And it's like, and the pandemic. And he'd always be like, just try and like limit those alien abductions. And yeah. So that was definitely, I don't know if I quite manifested it, but I don't know. It's weird though, because I wasn't really thinking of that while I was out there. So that's like, I guess like the instinct is to want to connect it with like a hallucination of like, was I really seeing what I was seeing? But I do feel really clear that what I was seeing was very different than all of these other hallucinations. And I guess that maybe sounds weird, but I think to those who have like hallucinated during ultras, it's like you can separate the two because like you're looking at the hallucination and it, like at least for me it always happens this way, and as you get closer to it, it just dissolves into whatever it really was, like the tree or the rock. But this was like very much different than that, and an experience that felt beyond that. And I was taking like a lot of measures even at the time to like make sure what I was seeing was accurate. Like I would stop and like sit on a rock and I would like watch it move like relative to a fixed object and things like that. So I was like very like almost studious at the time. Like I wasn't just totally out of my mind. I was like, it was the same night as night 4 was the wildfire as well.
Okay.
Which I do have a video of too, of the wildfire. So this isn't all this like total like, hallucination chaos. Like I have like black ash marks on my shoes on it actually. But yeah, that was a good catch on that Instagram post. That's funny.
So when did you first see the UFO, and like what was going through your mind? Before we even go there, do you believe in life outside of Earth? Do you believe 100%? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Me too. Yeah, me too. Yeah. Do you study or read anything about alien life forms, UFOs? Was this in your periphery beforehand?
Only from we watched like I think earlier this summer, like the I can't, oh gosh, I don't know if it was Unsolved Mysteries. It was one of the Netflix shows, and they went through, I think it was Unsolved Mysteries, and they went through like this town in the 60s that had this like whole alien abduction thing. And so I was like, that was one of the first things I had seen where I was like, oh, this is like these people are totally legit, and they really like had these abduction experiences, and they can like they like saw each other in the ship and all the like crazy stuff. Where I was like, what? Yeah. So it's not like I've been like totally into this or anything. It's more like, I think this year was the first year I was like, oh wow, like these are like legit stories. It's not just like, I don't know.
Yeah. Science fiction. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So when did you first see it, and what's going through your mind, and how close was it?
Well, so I saw a light ahead on the horizon, and my first instinct was finally another night traveler on the trail. Okay. And I was psyched because I was like, maybe it's another FKT attempt. Or I was thinking, for those who don't know, like The JMT is a section along the PCT too. So I wouldn't have thought it would be out of the picture to think of seeing like a group of thru hikers that are like, oh my gosh, it's a full moon right now, let's do like a night hike. Like I would totally do that if I was like thru hiking PCT or JMT. So I saw this light and it was like really low in the sky, and I was like, it felt like headlamp bright, like, you know, that feeling of, you know, in Leadville terms, like if you're low on Hope Pass and you look up on Hope Pass and someone's got like a bright Petzl now, you're like, oh yeah, that's like a headlamp and a very bright local light. Yeah, I spotted that, and then maybe a few minutes later, like watched as it pretty quickly like went up into the sky, and I was like, okay, well, you know, maybe that's you know, I'm not sure. maybe that was a star, and maybe it's a planet rising for the night. But in my head, I'm like, that was very quick though. This was like a matter of minutes. This wasn't like over a period of like an hour or something, or even 15 minutes. And so then I was starting to approach tree line. This is going over Donahue Pass, for those that are familiar with the route. Which is like a long exposed pass where you cross into the border into Yosemite. And right as I was approaching tree line was where I was getting suddenly like a more open view of it, and saw it like really moving in a way that I would almost call like, I'm sorry, I don't know what Cordis is doing right now.
That's
right. And the light was really like bobbing. Like it was like, it felt like it was kind of like it would kind of shoot up really quickly, and it almost felt like there was a light moving, like looking. So it felt very different to me from like a planet or a star. And it felt way closer to. It felt more like at that point when it was up in the sky, like the light from what like a helicopter above town might be. So it was feeling like really like I could see its movements really well, and it would go up and, you know, circle around. And I think like this is to me where it gets like the line is a little blurred between like what I was seeing and what my hallucinations were, because I felt like it was following me. So I felt like as though it had this like this is maybe where I just start to sound crazy, but like I really felt like it followed me kind of up and over the pass. Like it seemed to move with me.
Whoa.
And what was, I think, weird was it felt a little bit like I think I just felt very vulnerable being like on that pass, like at night. And I was like, man, okay, like if I am this person who sits on my sofa and thinks alien abductions are real and there's this thing overhead, perfect place for the abduction, like solo hallucinating chick out here on top of this mountain pass that's like gonna vanish into the ship and never be seen or heard from again. And so I actually felt very like kind of just like I had to approach it in a methodical way. So I turned off my headlamp, turned all lights off. Like I didn't even want to use like a watch or anything, like phone light or anything. I wanted no lights because I felt like this thing could really see me, and I was just so exposed. So I did the whole pass crossing with no headlamp or anything like that.
Wow.
And it was a little, it was weird to do because I felt like I was just kind of, I was just trying to move as fast as I could to get kind of back down below tree line where I felt less vulnerable.
Sure.
So I felt like this thing kind of went up to the edge of the pass with me. And then as I descended, I felt like it went like up to continue to get a view on me. And it was just a weird experience. Like I'm still trying to make sense of it. And I realize it sounds crazy as I was like also having these vivid hallucinations, but yeah, it was wild.
Did you hear anything?
No sound. It was totally silent, but it felt weird to be so close and silent. Right. And so like, honestly, even at the time, like I wasn't like all fear. It wasn't like I was just like shaking with fear or something. Cause I felt like, there was a part of me that was like, okay, like I know there's a lot of like SpaceX is in California. Like there's a possibility this is just some like drone that's out here practicing in like a remote place.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually felt very with it to realize that it could be something like that. And I was like, of course, Googling a lot after of like, you know, what recent activity there might have been in the area.
Yeah. Had anybody else seen any sightings at that time?
No, but when I posted about this on Instagram, someone else did tell me that they knew PCT thru hikers who had seen weird lights on Donahue Pass before.
At another time?
At another time.
Another time. Okay.
Like a few years prior.
Yeah. Yeah. And this thing was like following you for a few hours, right?
Yeah, it was from like 3 to 6 a.m.
Whoa.
So it was a long stretch to just be like, all right, like I'm going night 4 without a headlamp, which is like not ideal. Cause like
right.
stay awake. And like I was struggling to like make out the trail at points too, because I was like trying to just do this whole thing. I mean, the moon was still out, but it's like like it's one of those open rocky passes where you're kind of like, it's not like a trail, like a dirt trail. It's like guided rocks.
Mm-hmm.
But I was so happy when it like finally like went up into the sky at morning. I was like thrilled that experience was over.
Wow. That's crazy. How far away do you think it was?
I don't know. Like I'm not super familiar with like the distances up into the sky, but like I feel like whenever a helicopter might fly over Boulder at.
Okay. So pretty close.
Yeah, like it was not like I will still like recently I will be in the middle of like a night run here and I'll like look at the stars out and I'll be like, these are all so much further away than what I saw. Like if that was a star, there was like some crazy things happening in the sky because that was not like any star I've ever seen.
All you could see was the light though, right? You didn't really see like a shape of a craft or anything.
If I had to identify a shape, I would have felt like it was like a diamond, like not like a saucer, like almost like a square rotated on its point. Like it felt like the light had that shape to it.
Okay.
I wasn't like seeing an aircraft. It felt more just like the light was that shape. Yeah.
Wow.
It's weird. And also felt like there were like 2 way further lights that were possibly like in line with it, like as like a trio.
Yeah.
They were way far away. Like this one to me clearly felt like it was localized on this pass in some way, whether or not that was related to me being there or just like the pass, but it was weird.
That's crazy. I mean, everything you say lines up with other stories that I follow along with and other sightings that people have seen. And sometimes they see the trio of 3 different lights. And is there any way, do you think that this thing was guiding you somehow?
I didn't think of it as a positive thing, but it like, I wondered at all, like if it was, it felt like it was just kind of observing me. Like, and I don't know, like that if I had to say anything, it felt more like just curious about like why I was out there, what I was up to. But that's where it starts to get playing into my own psychology.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah, maybe it just picked up on your energy out there and just zeroed in on it for whatever reason. I mean,
right.
Wow, that's crazy.
Well, then it starts to get my crazy conspiracy theory is that the aliens started the fire, watched me put it out, and were like testing me somehow. And they were like, "Oh, she's capable. She can." You know?
Yeah, we got to put her on a mission somewhere else. They got plans for you. At any strange point, did you like wake up in the bushes from like and not remember like the last couple hours?
No, thank goodness.
Like no abductions or anything.
Yeah. You know, actually what was remarkable about the whole situation was that I was very alert all of a sudden. It was like an epic cup of coffee. Like
like high alert.
Yeah, like I wasn't like stumbling along, like looking up at this. Like I was like an intense. It was like as though I was like, oh my gosh, there's a creepy person like following me. Like I was like, play it cool, like just keep going, get this done, knock this pass out. Like I was very alert. Yeah.
And then at 6 a.m., it just disappeared. It went off.
Yeah, it slowly rose into the sky. And I do have a photo from like the morning that I took. And that was because I suddenly felt like, okay, I feel safe taking a photo of this now. And of course, it's like, it's weird to take a photo of something. It was on a GoPro too. So it's even more of like this wide angle. But it is still in that photo, like a very, very bright light considering the sky is like starting to be pink. So
did you try and like zoom in really close to see if you can see it any closer?
yeah, it's like pixelated enough that it just looks like a white dot.
Wow.
But,
yeah. You weren't meant to get a picture of it. You were just meant to see it.
I know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Not many people can say that. I did. Like, it's funny, whenever I go out into the mountains and go camping and stuff, I almost spend time every single night, like laying in the ground, just looking at the sky. Like, I know there's stuff moving around out there. Like, I'm just waiting to see one, as crazy as it sounds. And it just came right to you. So that's crazy.
Well, I'm really curious. Like, you'll have to send me some of your, if you're ever reading any interesting articles or sightings or whatever. I'm trying to learn a little bit more about what it might have been. So.
Oh my gosh, I'm all over it.
Rabbit hole I'm willing to indulge.
Cool. Oh, wow. So at that point, you only had a handful of hours to go, right?
Yeah. Really getting into, so descending Donahue Pass puts you into Tuolumne Meadows. And from there, it was, I guess maybe at that point, I'm maybe in the like 30 miles to go, maybe like in the final 50K or so.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I was, at that point, I had felt like I missed my window for the record. That last night had to go perfectly. And I just didn't quite realize how much the lack of sleep would affect me, even like lumping in the whole, like, like whatever it was I saw, there were like stretches where I was stopping to watch it. And I just lost a lot of time over that whole night. And so, but I was still like super keyed in for to like finish strong. And I was like, so proud of this. And in my head, trying to like compete with, like other times I knew of, other like unsupported, men and things like that. I'm like, I'm still so proud of this. And this
absolutely.
for me. So I was like super engaged still through the end. It wasn't like once the FKT was out of sight, it was like, trudging or something. But so like that last day was like really wild though, because this new Shaver Lake fire had started up, and really by the whole descent into Yosemite Valley, for those that are familiar with those trails kind of between Tuolumne and Yosemite Valley, dropping into the valley, it was just completely thick orange smoke. And these trails that are normally full of backpackers that, folks reserve spots in there like a year in advance. It's like so teeming with life and awesome places to recreate. It was empty. So I'm going through here and I'm like, oh my gosh, did rangers come through and like clear out the trails or something? And I think it was just that everyone was canceling their trips or rerouting because the smoke was, it was ash raining down. I'm like wiping my eyes and mouth. There's just ash all over me. And it was a really eerie experience to go from that, even from that weird night to then this weird day of smoke. And I was describing it to someone else recently as like, it felt like my like action movie finish, where it's like the buildings are blowing up and everything is crazy. And you're like, how did we get here? This is wild. Like it felt like that kind of finish where I was just like, how can things keep getting crazier? This is
right. Yeah. Like I just started on a nice long trail hike and now there's fires and aliens and everything.
Exactly.
Yeah, totally. Wow.
But at that point, then it was like, my tracker had died like a day and a half before.
Oh, no.
And I had but I did have like phone battery. So I was able to like send Cordis a text of like, okay, I've got this many miles to go. And that was like so exciting to have that feeling of like, okay, I know he's bringing me a pizza and I'm going to get to see him at the end and we're going to, get to reunite. And that was like just so what was like, my eyes were all on that finish. And I really just tried to run as many steps as I could that whole descent into Yosemite Valley, especially with the smoke. I was like, I've just got to knock this out right now. And I just ran as hard as I could to that finish.
Was that emotional at the end, or were you so tired you were just cleared of emotions? Because I've been in both places.
Definitely. I was, so it's really funny. When I was texting with Cordis, he had said something like, I'll try and remember, something like, you know, finish strong, like every step, give it everything you got. And like, to me, that was such a beautiful sentiment of like, I want to finish this running as hard as I can. Like I want to just empty it, like empty it all. And like, I like love that mentality. And so I'm running down these final switchbacks. I'm running so hard. And I like totally like misjudged like how much I still had left. So I was like charging down these final switchbacks, like thinking that I was more like a half mile to the finish. And really, I think I still had like 2 miles to finish. And it's like in my state, I didn't quite have enough to like throw down like a hard, you know, 2 miles. So I was definitely like, it was like a little false alarm where I was like tears streaming down my face, running so hard. And then I was like, okay, I've still got like a little ways to go here. But then of course, for me, like the most emotional part is just getting to see Cordis again. And he and I had actually like missed each other. Like he was like, I ran to his, like he was waiting in a different spot. So I actually finished and then ran back to like where, sorry, I think he's doing a construction project.
That's right.
I like ran back up like to where he had been waiting because I had missed him. So I like kept going after the finish a little bit longer.
Yeah. Wow.
Only about a few minutes, but.
How'd you celebrate?
I really enjoyed drinking pints of melted Ben & Jerry's vegan ice cream.
That sounds amazing.
Yep. So that was like my habit. Even like on the drive home, we'd like pull off and grab a pint for me. And that was like my favorite. So nice. I enjoyed that. And then we were in Tahoe for a little bit after, waiting to crew my friend and Cordis's coach, Corinne Malcolm, who was going for the Tahoe Rim Trail, but she had to postpone because of all these fires. So we went and waited in Tahoe in case it was going to come through. And she like got crushed that FKT a few weeks later. But so yeah, it was ended up just being like a night. We just extended our trip a little. So
that's cool. That's so cool. Were you pretty beat up afterwards, or did you recover pretty quick?
I recovered pretty quick. I think that the things that were more lasting were kind of like the sleep, like just sleeping crazy deep and crazy long amounts of time, feeling the weight of that even really into mid to late fall, as well as just kind of like some of the emotional impacts. You know, like it was a big thing emotionally. And I've been, like I said, just thinking about it all the time. I definitely had just kind of like some, you know, like post-trail blues after that were super real. And like I can only imagine, especially people that do things even longer, you know, where you're really settling into like weeks of life like that. It's just such a unique way to go through, you know, a string of days, and it really leaves a mark emotionally. So that was like probably where I felt my recovery the most. Just in trying to like move on from it, you know, and figure out like how I can, you know, it's just like, it's such a joyful, beautiful experience for me. And I would like often just be so overcome when I would think of it that I think that's like why it's taken me so long to write that trip report. But I feel like now I'm kind of able to put words to the experience in a way that things were still so fresh and whatnot, just a few weeks after. So
yeah, those blues afterwards, that's a real thing. I'm glad you bring that up. A lot of people experience that, and that's something that's not really talked about too often. But wow, well, what an incredible adventure experience. Yeah, I can't wait to read your write-up. I mean, you could probably write a book just on that experience alone.
Yeah, it's pretty special. I've had a lot of fun, like slowly writing about it. And I'm glad I'm taking the time to do it and really put my thoughts to it, because there's just so much to unpack.
Yeah.
And it's like a fun resource for anyone else who's like wanting to go give it a try in that style or in whatever style. So
100%.
I
Yeah.
know I'm stocking all of those materials that existed out there on it ahead of time. So
For sure. That's what we do.
yeah.
What's on the docket for next year?
I am really just hoping that UTMB happens so I can go run CCC again.
Cool.
So that's on the radar for sure. And you know, I think I'm not sure if it will be like returning to Numapoyo again next year. I definitely want to again at some point, but you know, it might be more like another like slightly shorter unsupported adventure, like pushing that style out a little bit, but maybe one that like can still coexist along the lines of like a summer of racing without just being totally burnt out. So yeah.
Sounds like a good year coming up.
Yeah.
Good. Do you have a website or anything? Or
Yeah,
okay.
we have Cordis and I have we repurposed our old wedding website. It's abbyandcordis.com. Just
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we do blog posts there on both of our different adventures and stuff. And so yeah, we try to maintain it fairly regularly. The one post I did get to publishing already was a big gear list of everything that I used out on the trail. So if you know anyone's putting together a similar trip, it's hopefully a helpful resource for that.
Yeah, I'm sure. Absolutely. Cool. Well, any shout outs or anything you want to give before we jump off? Sponsors, anybody?
Yeah. Let's see. I'll shout out well, my husband Cordis for all of his support through all of this, obviously. My coach Jason Coop at CTS Coaching. He's a huge part of my journey with all of this, and especially like just not only showing up fit at the start of this kind of thing, but being mentally prepared and channeling that confidence and growing that and helping cultivate that in me over the years is a really helpful piece of my running journey. And then also my sponsor, Adidas Terex, their support on me doing something a little outside my wheelhouse was, I really appreciated that. So yeah. And then also sponsored by Lecky Poles, which they're just fantastic. And I had crazy tan lines to prove my use of my Lecky Poles.
Oh, because they go over your hands.
Yeah, they have like the hand. So that's how much I love my Lecky Poles. So yeah, super grateful to all those awesome sponsors for helping me get to do cool things like this.
Awesome. Cool. Well, Abby, keep it up. You're
Thank you.
inspiring people. You're doing big things. People are watching. You're inspiring people. So just keep doing what you're doing. Set the world on fire.
Man, thank you.
Absolutely. Yes. Cool. Well, thank you so much for taking all this time to chat with me. It's been totally awesome. And I'm glad you weren't abducted. I'm glad you're still with us.
Me too. Yeah. Thank you
if you
so
ever
much.
have another experience like that, you gotta tell me, and then I'm gonna have you back on, because maybe you're like the chosen one. They're watching you for some bigger purpose.
Maybe.
Yeah, I know. So
well,
keep me posted.
And going deep on the UFO stuff.
Yes. Oh, I love it. That's my wheelhouse.
I love it.
All right. Have a great night. Thank you so much, Abby.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
We'll see you. Bye.